Yeah, Diamondbacks right back at it here in less than an hour against the Washington Nationals, going for the sweep, and the trade deadline has passed. So pleased to be joined right now on the Arizona Sports Line by Arizona Diamondbacks General Manager Mike Hazen. Mike, thank you so much for the time. How are you doing now that the deadline is over?
It's good. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a long month. It's not just a deadline, right? It's a draft, too. So we somehow have decided that July is going to be forcing all of us to just work straight through July. But it was good. It's good. It's always a long week. It gets stressful there in that last 48 hours because, you want to do things. You want to do so much. You want to deliver to the clubhouse. Yet you always want to be somewhat mindful of what you're doing as an organization because that does matter in the short and long term, too. So you're trying to balance all those things. But it was good. I think in the end, we got out of the deadline what we were hoping to sort of solidify, which was the bullpen. And then, adding Josh Bell was certainly a different avenue we had to go down, but we're very excited to have him too. So in the end, I think this team is pretty well set up going down the last 50-something games.
No, I totally agree with you, Mike. Well done there. But listen, were you all about buying at the deadline?
All about. Never even considered selling. So, I think I had spoken publicly early in the month about, what different roads could look like. You unfortunately, in sports and in life, you can't rule out the 2 for, going 2-15 over a stretch. And that could have altered how we looked at what we did, but we played our best baseball in July. It's kind of what I asked at the beginning of July is have the team put us in a position to buy. And the team, we had our best month. And our players are starting to play. Guys like Gino and others are starting to play the way we felt they could play. And that has put us in a good position relative to a playoff spot right now. And for us to be able to go out and try to solidify some of our holes.
We're talking to Mike Hazen. Mike, I hear what you're saying, that you feel pretty set up now for the stretch run. I know last year you made a lot of moves that ended up paying off, but I know you still wanted a starting pitcher after the deadline last year. Do you feel like you got everything you guys really needed this time to be set up?
I think so. I come back to this point, which is tough. Like some of the areas of our team, like last year, we didn't have a person to do what I was sort of regretful for. We have good players in those spots now that some of whom haven't quite hit their stride to what we expect and know that they're going to do. So that's a totally different equation. And to go out and get an upgrade over those guys when you know and believe in the potential of what they're going to do for you eventually, even if it's not happening right this second, that's a different thing where I don't, you're making a bet. Are you making a bet that guy's going to turn it, kind of turn it around and get going on their normal progression or more normal projection for what they've done in their career? Or are you just going to discard that and go and get somebody new, which there's certain unknowns to that? Look, it's obviously sexier to do something when it's an unknown because nobody's watched anybody fail. And when you haven't watched them fail, you believe that they're never going to fail, right? That's the way we're all wired. But it's not that – I don't think it's that simple. I think the team we have, the reason we didn't do, a flurry of transactions is because this is a good team. And we're not perfect. We're not a perfect team. We haven't played perfect. But we have a good team. We have a good bullpen. We have a young position player group that's fast and dynamic, and we're doing a good job on offense right now. And when this rotation comes back healthy and pitching the way it can, I think we have every right to be standing in the mix of teams that are going to be right in it until the end.
Yeah. Mike, do you ever have deadline remorse? I should have done this. I should have done that. I remember last year, as a matter of fact, and how you were all over yourself because you weren't able to do what you needed to do. Do you ever have any deadline remorse?
Well, if we've been talking to each other for a long time, I think you could answer that question. I think I have remorse over everything. Do
you track it though,
deadline, Mike? I mean, I know I'm going to shock you again here, but I did I feel mentally like when I leave the deadline room or when I leave certain things like that, the first thing that goes into my mind is I could have and should have done more. And it's just it's the way my mind works. It stinks, actually, because you're never really satisfied with the work that you're doing. But at the same time, I think it keeps you somewhat on edge to continue to push forward and where you're trying to get to, which is going to be one of the hardest things that you can do in sports, and to win a championship. So yeah, I do. I will say it's different than last year. Last year, I think there were some sort of targeted things that I wish I had done. This year, I don't feel the same way. This year, I feel like the things that we chose not to do was because the players that we have here are good. And our biggest improvement as a team that's going to turn into a playoff caliber / whatever you end up in the playoff caliber, like where you go in October, is going to be because the guys internally take another step forward in their performance. That's what I believe right now.
Mike, you said when you leave the deadline room, is there an actual literal deadline room that you actually walk in?
There is. It's a real room. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
It's a magical.
How do we get in the deadline room? I mean,
right? It smells after a week straight of us being in there for 12 hours a day. So it's not really the most glamorous thing that you can ever imagine. There's a lot of
that's
food.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm just trying to hold off having a heart attack for the most part for that week. But there is a room. There is a room. Yes.
Wow.
We're talking to Mike Hazen. Mike, your team in their last 9 series are 8-0-1. In the last 17, they're 12-2-3. I mean, that's obviously the goal, right? Is to win every series. But what does that tell you about your group, really, since the start of June?
What it tells me is that level of consistency over a long period of time in baseball is that you have a good team, because you can't fake that. And you can't say that we were just playing inferior competition because we went into division leaders on the road and did some of that, et cetera. So I think that level of consistency is what makes good baseball teams. When you look across the league, I think I'm hoping that consistency continues. Like I said, with some continued improved performance, I think that can be. We are about to embark on an extremely difficult stretch, and our September is going to be really hard. We have, I think, a top 5, top 10 hardest strength of schedule left, which I talked about yesterday, which I actually think, and I've said this before when people were asking us about that in the playoffs, if you can't get through that playing good baseball, you have no shot to play in the playoffs. And it's not about getting to the playoffs. It's fine. We've already done that, right? That's not the goal anymore. Like, I do want to get to the playoffs. Getting to the playoffs is a marker in your career, in your season, for sure, for the players, for us, for everybody. But that's not the goal. And in order to play well in the playoffs, you have to be semi-battle tested, and you're not going to do that until you go to Milwaukee in September, you go to Houston in September. These places get Philly here for 4. You have the Mets here that we haven't played well against the last few years. Like, that's a very strong. We go to Boston. Those are going to be strong tests for us, and to see if we're going to be able to handle October again.
So, Mike, tell us about Josh Bell. And did you know what was what with Christian Walker when you made the move with acquiring Josh?
We did. So I was ignoring calls from the writers to get an update because I didn't want any information getting out there. So we did know. We had a pretty good understanding the night before that even though we hadn't gotten the MRI results, that it was very likely to be an IL. So I was at least starting to plan and make some phone calls the night before. And then that morning when we got the MRI results and knew it was going to be an IL, we were able to kind of jump into action on that. It stinks that Christian Walker that got hurt and is not playing for us right now.
Right.
It was fairly fortuitous that it happened the night before the deadline as opposed to the day of the deadline. So we were able to go get a player that we think is going to slot in to our lineup and be able to control both sides of the plate and get on base and has a little bit of power. And we've heard nothing but unbelievable stuff in the clubhouse. So we like that fit.
Mike, we appreciate the time. Good luck with the rest of the season and everything. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. That's Mike Hazen joining us right there on the Arizona Sports Line. Busy trade deadline, as it turns out. I mean, everything, right? You get A.J. Puck early. You get Josh Bell because you have to pivot and do it. And then you get Dylan Flora with about a minute left in the trade deadline.
Very, very cool, man. The bullpen is better, much better today.
Interesting to hear his answer too, that because we talked to him a lot last year at the deadline and after, where he was like, yeah, I wanted a starting pitcher and I didn't get one. Like, he already had that sort of remorse as the deadline happened last year, whereas this year he, at least you can't predict the future, but feels pretty good about what they've got, and he probably should.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.